Securitatea cibernetică este esențială pentru buna funcționare a unui stat. Știm deja, totul este digitalizat sau pe cale să devină, iar internetul este parte din viața noastră. Cum faci însă când ai de apărat ceva ca democrația? Poți să protejezi libertăți fără să încalci principii? Primim răspunsuri de la Yigal Unna, fostul director al Direcţiei Naţionale Cibernetice din Israel. Sunt Cristina Cileacu, începe Pașaport Diplomatic. Yigal Unna, former Director General of Israel National Cyber Directorate, welcome to Diplomatic Passport.
Thank you.
We are in 2024 and this is called the super electoral year for the entire planet, and we can call it, because we are now talking about cybersecurity, a kind of a heaven for cyber criminals. Is there any real defense for what might come next?
As holding the Guinness Book of Records of protecting 4 elections campaigns in Israel in just 2 years, I can tell you this, it's one of the toughest jobs that any country, any democratic liberal society or country faces today. And you mentioned that this year it's heaven for hackers, for bad players, bad actors in cybersecurity. And the problem is that democracy, unlike turbines that generates electricity or watering systems that you have perimeter, you see the fences, you can defend it. Democracy is maybe the most critical infrastructures that we all have, and it's very vague, very hard to define what exactly we're defending. For example, the election process itself, and also the public opinion. And public opinion in democracy, it's sacred. So we don't want to restrict it in any way, but we do need to protect it from fake, from infiltrations, and all of the above are happening. And the bad guys, the bad players, coming from cybercrime groups or terror groups, like we have in the Middle East, or rogue countries, North Korea, Iran, or even superpowers that don't share the same values, they understand the asymmetry. They don't practice democracy. They are not depending on public opinion. They are less digitalized, and they understand that we are the contrary. So they abuse this asymmetry against us, because we cannot fight back on the same level or on the same battlefield on their democracy, because they don't have.
Voting systems, voting machines, because most of them are digital in many countries already, are vulnerable. Can this type of attacks coming from various actors be as hard as to change the result of some elections?
The answer is all of the system is vulnerable. Yeah. It's not just the voting itself, which is by itself, yes, it's digital, it's vulnerable. In Israel, for example, I insisted, and they heard me, we were still using paper voting until 20 years from now. Because at the end you can check, count physical paper and compare it. But it's not just this. It's about manipulating public opinion. It's about interfering strongly into all the process. Now we see the first big case that was published is 2016 US presidential elections. We see fingerprints. The FBI is accusing publicly Russian interference with naming names of FSB agents, officers that were involved. And some would say they succeeded in manipulating, in causing chaos, in inflammatory dialogue and debate in democratic society. So it's not just the voting, it's dealing or protecting, from our point of view, many aspects that some of them can be argued is legitimate for a government. In Israel, for example, we separated from the beginning of an election the government agencies dealing with protection of the election. We separated with the full agreement by the Prime Minister from the political system. We were having decisions with ourselves, with a judge responsible for a Supreme Court judge that's responsible, to make sure that it's clean. And cleanness is one of the most important elements of any democratic elections or process. So you need to keep it, on one hand, free from politics, away from political influence, and on the other hand, be something that is equal and do the work for everybody without any biases.
Yeah. The social media platforms that are mostly used for what you just say, for this type of influence of the public, are not quite regulated. But when you have something that obviously damage, and you can show that it's obviously a damage when it comes to the public opinion, how come the algorithm do not remove them from the...
Any algorithm is written by human beings, and anything done by one human being can be undone or manipulated by another human being. That's the beauty of mankind, until AI and machines will replace us. So don't count on the algorithms, but you need the strong forces that will, that can, and we do that in Israel on the government level. Also, we have a couple of very good cyber industry companies, private companies, that sell solutions that can identify and detect fake accounts and then report them to Facebook or Meta, as they call it, or Instagram, whatever. So we have technology. It's all the time. It's never-ending race between good guys and bad guys and influential. But any algorithm is immediately brings with itself its counter or destructive element, and vice versa. So we just need to be very fast, to be a few steps ahead in this race, but you need to set up your mind to set the right mechanisms. That's usually where countries and governments fail. They don't realize that they need to pull new units. We didn't have them or didn't need them 5 years ago, 6 years ago. Now it should be a big division, a big unit, and it's many debates.
But what can a simple citizen do? Artificial intelligence is part of our life, and we have a lot of synthetic content. We have robocalls, we have messages we don't want on our phones, and so on and so forth. And this is also an influence. How can people, citizens that don't have the background of a cybersecurity expert, to defend themselves?
It's a matter of awareness and education. People should be much more aware of the dangers that are in the social media. We are still in a time that people believe newspapers because it's printed.
I think it depends on the country.
Yes, it's changing all around the world. Young people don't know about newspapers. They only consume from the social media. We, as adults, systems, education systems, we need, and I heard that in Finland they are doing a pretty good job in that, in vaccination, in immuning the youngsters to be more questionable, more critic for what they see and consume, and to try to compare, to do like a journalistic basics job, not just to consume any post that they see, and usually to be much more critical and suspicious about crazy things that appears. The crazy, as it seems, usually it's less real, and we should all, I do that with my children, and the countries should do that more organized with education systems, to be much more provocative. We need to face provocative and to immune youngsters to when they see something too provocative, too unimaginable, probably it's not true. At least check it, double, triple, until you get some assurances, and usually you don't. And never share something before you checked it. Cybersecurity
is now helping itself by artificial intelligence. On the other hand, attackers can do much more coordinated attacks when it comes with the help done by the artificial intelligence. Is it a matter of good or bad, or how shall we see this?
AI is technology. AI, basically, it's imitating human behavior. Much faster, much more better in many ways, mostly faster. So whatever human behavior can do with cybersecurity on the hackers, the offensive side, or on the defensive side, AI just brings it with the steroids, much faster, much stronger. So if you are an ethical hacker, it can brings a lot of efficiency to check penetration into a bank and to find breaches much faster and much better than the old way. But also for the bad actors to find breaches and to infiltrate. To imitate, phishing, to hook naive, innocent employees to click on a link that will open the gates of hell. Yeah. Things like that. Artificial intelligence can do that much faster, much better, but also for defensive. If now I want to check a software and to find breaches, vulnerabilities, which is something that a daily practice for hundreds of thousands of software engineers around the world, AI can save time and many resources and find it much faster. So, like any technology, like nuclear technology, it depends in which hands it lies.
Yeah. Yes. Cybersecurity diplomacy, it's something that it comes with the territory because everyone needs it, and especially because there are states that attack other states cyber-wise. What is the cybersecurity diplomacy?
Well, first of all, it's something that rised up dramatically in the past 6-7 years. And I can tell you, as a director of the Israeli agency, I have signed over 30 agreements with governments and even more with the NGOs, like the Latin America Bank, Development Bank, and things like that, OECD, and of course with Romania in June 2019. And these agreements are all a kind of a declaration, mostly, of the need to partner. And in cybersecurity, more than other fields, it's a need to have partnership, because not a single player, not a single company, not a single agency, not a single country can win this war by itself, because of the nature and the connectivity of the internet. When somebody attacks, Iran usually attacks Israel, they never go directly. They want to hide themselves. That's the common practice. So they go through Spain and Sweden and India and UAE and then to Israel. If Israel have agreements and sharing information with UAE, India, Spain and Sweden, then we can detect and mitigate and stop to prevent the attack. The Iranians cannot even go out from Iran. This is how important the partnership, and there's a lot of other examples of that, of sharing best practices in the speed of light, and speed is a very strong key success factor in cybersecurity. Yeah. By sharing information, you can be 2 steps or much more steps ahead of any attack, because it's a pandemic. It's like a COVID-19. In the COVID-19 time, all the world almost, joined up and shared information and data to fight it, because it didn't differentiate between east, west, and north and south. So in cyber, it's almost the same. Although there you have people with bad players and bad actors, the rest, the like-minded countries, as we call them, like in Europe, like in Israel and others, we join up, and it works like a pandemic. Once you see the first sign of outbreak, a new virus, a new vulnerability, something happens, if we share it fast enough, we can save each other. And there's an example between Romania and Israel. In June 2019, I believe, there was a big attack over Romanian hospitals. Yeah. So the first 3 hospitals were crippled down, and Romania and Israel are very strong connected, so they gave us a call, and we shared information, and we thought together what we can do, and gave some advices. And they spread the advices to all of the other hospitals. So maybe another 3 hospitals, overall 6 hospitals were crippled, but the other 60-something hospitals that you have, a big country, were saved because of this kind of partnership, of diplomacy. So it's not just diplomacy for, as we can think about bloodline and speak, it's tangible and fruitful assets that help countries and nations together to mitigate evil.
Does this work when it comes to cyber espionage as well?
In some cases, yes. There are few usual suspects, let's say, of technology espionage that we all suffer from, because if my secrets are shared with Romania, and Romania is hacked by this specific or other actors, then my secrets are compromised as well. Cybersecurity, it's making your fortress big and strong enough for any kind of attack, may it be espionage or destruction or criminal or whatever. And fortunately, we see a growing motivation and growing speed and volume of this kind of partnership in conferences, in global forums and others that join forces. In fact, there's no other option. Whoever is out of these forums is dead. He doesn't know it yet, but he will get killed, because you cannot win, not Israel, not anyone else.
And in this case, with all these cooperations, but also with an area that is very fast advancing, how can a country build its strategy when it comes to cyber defense?
Well, each country should, first of all, analyze its critical processes, what we call critical infrastructures, but it's really processes and assets. And again, democracy is something that usually is neglected, because the technology guys and the experts usually look at more tangible water and security. Yeah. But you need to ask yourself, what is really important to your country? By the way, it's not an easy question to answer. It needs a lot of thinking. Okay, once you realize what is really important, then it's easy to build the right solution. Another key success factor that I see in Israel, and by the way in France, and don't see it in other places almost, is to build an agency that is reporting to the highest executive instance. In Israel, it's the Prime Minister. In France, it's the President and the Prime Minister. In many other countries, it's not. Reporting to a specific minister, may it be telecommunication or energy or treasury. And that's a problem, because cyber is about everything. Everything is connected. It deals with everything: transportation, energy, finance. You find cyber issues everywhere. So you need the highest point of overview, the country, and you need the highest instance, executive instance, to say, this is the basic of the strategy. The other things, you need to drill down and see how the culture works, who are the strongest players. In Israel, for example, we rely a lot on the private sector. We even developed a system that we deal with the critical infrastructure by the government, by the National Directorate, but we opened a second layer that is unique to Israel, deals with all the less critical, essential. All the banks, all the hospitals, for example, are there. And there we are using the already existing regulators to regulate them also with cyber. It's risky, but it pays itself fantastic, because we open small cyber directorates, mini directorates, in each and every regulator. So the banking supervisory, the Ministry of Energy, the Ministry of Healthcare, they all have their own cyber expertise. The minister is happy because he controls it. The regulator is happy because he has not just big sticks, but also a big carrot to offer to his regulated. And they know much better their professional arena.
You mentioned in the beginning of our talk the fact that cybersecurities or engineers in general are much more focused on something if it has fences or if it's clear defined. Democracy doesn't have fences. How can something that has a lot to deal with emotion be defended by cybersecurity?
This is the biggest challenge that the West democracies are facing today, because at the end it's finding the balance between freedom of speech and even freedom to crazy people to speak up. This is democracy. And shutting down a fake or manipulative or inflammatory sponsored accounts or voices. And it's very delicate. And I believe in the coming years we'll see, as AI grow, we'll see more challenges and will need to be maybe a little more stricter, and maybe to even to close little the overall perimeter of democracy in order to defend it. And this is one of the biggest challenges that we all think and face in the university, in academia, in other places, how to manage it properly without harming it on the way, without pulling the water with the baby. This is delicate. I don't think anyone have a strict answer. It's depending on the country and the time, because now in the year of US elections, there's one thing, and other years we'll see other things. But for sure, it's the pandemic that we're all going to all suffer. And the problem, it's like a cancer. It's undetected. You don't feel it until it already almost killed you. So we need an early detection and early means and measures to prevent the effect before it gets into the systems and influence it and contaminate it.
Yigal Unna, thank you so much for this interview.
Thank you.
Atât pentru astăzi, dar rămânem în continuare online pe pagina de Facebook a emisiunii și pe contul nostru de Twitter. Revenim cu subiecte noi din lumea diplomației și a politicii externe, vinerea viitoare de la 11:30 și reluare sâmbătă după miezul nopții. La revedere!